My name's Jirat Patradoon, as you can tell. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I'm an artist. I think, maybe. I do art in the form of, I'll show you. So this is just like a zoomed out version of my website. I thought this would be the best way to just see everything all at once. So I do art in the form of like digital drawings, murals, animated GIFs. I've done some sculptural stuff in the past in the form of like customizing leather jackets and things like that. And I also do like illustration for clients. As you can see, I've got this like really neon pop 80s sci-fi horror style going on. And my process is pretty much all digital. Here's a picture of me at work. Nah, it's well, it's pretty close. This is actually what I look like at work. But everything from like executing ideas, drawing, and even like conceiving ideas, I pretty much just do it all digitally. I embrace this kind of like digital, like cyberpunky kind of like idea, and I'll explain a bit of that later. But a lot of that comes from this weird phobia I have of mass. I used to be a really crazy hoarder, and anything that I liked or loved or like like sparked joy, I just had to have it. So I just take it. And but when you move house enough times and you move studios enough times, it becomes like pretty traumatic to move all that stuff, and I'm kind of petrified of relapsing. I used to own like a scythe as well, like the Grim Reaper had, and I had to move that every time I moved studios and houses, and I'm just like, that's a bit too much. So this is my old studio above a pub, and I used to always get a lot of complaints from the other artists. Because they're like, you have so much space, but you're only really just using that spot right there. And I'm just like, well, too bad, this is my room, so get out. But my entire studio is pretty much like a MacBook and a Wacom Cintiq. And if I can fit it all in a backpack, like I'm pretty happy. I don't really want anything more than that. And that means I can kind of go around and like do everything I want without having to like worry about, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, And when things need to become physical, I kind of make them physical, but like in the form of like a painting or a mural, and I execute those. But otherwise, it's all on a hard drive, or it's just kind of on the internet. And I kind of like it being that kind of minimal. So I was born in Thailand. Mother's Thai, my father's Chinese, and I've been raised in Australia my whole life, pretty much, which is why I talk like this. And I'm currently based in Bangkok now, but I'll get on to that in a bit. I just wanted to give a disclaimer first. I love going to conferences. I love watching artist talks online, things like that. Here's me at a conference, meeting my hero, James Jean. You guys know James Jean? No one? Shit, okay. Okay, he's like a really big-time artist, like one of my heroes, and something that I generally notice is because of like time limits and like to maintain like an audience's attention and to come across in like a really professional way and not go on tangents too much, there's this tendency to present the past as like this kind of like really neat and linear story, kind of like this. Like, so one good thing goes to another and like to another and to another, and I'm probably going to be guilty of the same thing, to be honest. It's going to sound like I make a lot of deliberate decisions and accomplish them and tick boxes and move on to the next thing, but I'm going to be really honest with you right now. I don't really know what I'm doing. Or do I? I don't. I actually don't. But I just want to say, like, the reality of having like a creative career is like, it can actually just be super, super messy. And it involves like a lot of misadventure, a lot of like failures, a lot of random stuff going on that doesn't always feel like you're moving in the right direction, and you feel kind of lost and afraid most of the time. I find, at least, anyway. Which isn't me saying don't do it. I'm just saying if that's happening to you, that's totally normal. And I mean, like, no matter what level you're at, if you're like starting out, mid-career, even if you've been doing it for ages, and you feel like this is all still so crazy, I have no idea what I'm doing, it's fine. Everyone goes through that. Everyone feels like that. So like my basic approach to life and also my work is kind of to just do like whatever it is I feel like doing at the time, like, and be true to myself, but kind of like with the least effort as well. So basically it's just like I like making like really cool shit as fast as possible. Because I'm actually really lazy. And I say that to a lot of people and they're just like, no, you're not lazy, you've done all this stuff. And I'm just like, ugh. Yeah, so, I mean, luckily that's led me on to some really great projects, right? Like, I've been getting paid, turn it into a living somehow, turn it into a career. I get to meet amazing people. I'm somehow in Goa now, talking to you guys. That's amazing. And yeah, so that's my disclaimer. Like, we're not perfect, but you don't need to be either if you're doing this stuff, okay? So with that aside, I'm going to, oh, okay, I'm going to start at the beginning. I can't even see the timer from here, okay. All the way back. Now, a question every artist usually gets is like, when, well, I always get it. Everyone's always just like, when did you start drawing? And the answer is like, everyone pretty much starts drawing at the same time. It's just that they kind of stop at some point. Some people stop, some people continue, whatever. My parents thought it was kind of cute that I drew. They thought it was kind of impressive, like I could impress like neighbors and relatives and stuff, but they never really wanted me to make a career out of it. And they let me know quite often. And to this day, the other day, actually, my dad came to visit Bangkok the other day, and he actually asked me, he's like, he was watching me, like, I was just like painting, and he's like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I've been your son for like 34 years, you don't know. And I'm just like, I was about to get really angry, but then I'm just like, well, I don't actually know either. So I couldn't really answer that. So they wanted me to like, you know, get a real job, obviously, but I can't, because this is my real job. And I think when I was younger, they wanted me to be an architect. But as you can see from like a lot of the work I make, like I hate drawing backgrounds, I hate drawing buildings. So I was never going to do architecture, right? But I did go to art school. I went to art school with the intention to transfer to graphic design, so like more practical, so I can like make money. But I kept forgetting to, and before I knew, I had graduated. And I'd written a thesis as well. Like it was like 4 years, and it just went by just like that. And at the end of it, I was just kind of like, oh shit, I forgot to do that transfer paper, like to get into graphic design. I'm like, fuck. And I remember as well, like when I was at art school and I talked to like relatives and stuff like that, they'd ask me like what I did. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing like a Bachelor of Fine Arts. And they'd be like, you know, like Chinese relatives, they're just like, amazing, you're doing finance. And I'm like, no, I'm doing fine arts. And this was kind of like, the reaction would always be like this. You know, and that would kind of, I was like, let's just continue eating. Let's stop talking about this stuff. So I studied printmaking, which, do you guys all know printmaking? It's like really old-timey. It's like etching, screen printing, lithography, things like that. And I majored in screen printing. And I think what attracted me to screen printing is because it looked really fast, and you can make large-scale work really easily. And something that I always like used to think, or still probably still think, is that you can do something like pretty crap, but if it's really huge, it's still pretty impressive. And with screen printing, you just like pull a squeegee. Now I do murals, so I'm still making crap, making it really big, and people are still stoked on it. So that's a little trick I have. But also, no one else in my class was doing it, so I could have the whole studio to myself, which is amazing because I like working alone. But more importantly, I saw an opportunity to like introduce digital drawing into the process, you know, which not only made things a lot faster, but believe it or not, I'm not that confident a drawer. If you put like a piece of paper in front of me now and be like, oh, draw this thing, I will not do it. I will just be like, and then also I'll just be like, well, I probably can't, you know. But I'm not confident a drawer. So working digitally meant I could fake it, I could finesse things, hide my mistakes, and look really a lot more impressive than I am. So if you know anything about screen printing, it involves like a lot of layers. And it's almost like a physical Photoshop. And so for me, it wasn't really that hard to make the jump to actually just using straight up Photoshop, which makes a lot of sense now in the future. It's like almost 2020. But in the early noughties, when I was like going to art school, things were a bit different. Like my teachers were like, that's cheating, and like you should do it this way, and da-da-da-da. But I didn't really care, because I don't really like doing things the hard way. And I find that whenever you start using a new technology, and I'm saying this mostly in the field of like art, because I think you guys are all stoked on technology here. In art, it's like people tell you like you're cheating. The thing is, I love cheating. I love cheating in like video games. Whenever I used to play video games, the first thing I'd do, the game would start, then immediately I would just like look up the cheats, put them all in, have the best time. I cheat in everything. Not in love, though. Okay? But this was my honours year series, which I made in 2006, which is ages ago. But people still reference it now. I don't know why. I think I've made a lot better stuff since, but they keep bringing it up. And it was really well received, but it also taught me like a really big lesson in that a lot of people would kind of come up to me and be like, you know what, man, like we really, really loved your series, but you kind of ruined it with the hot pink and stuff. You know, and they're like, I would buy it. I would love this if only it wasn't so hot pink. Like, could you change it? And I was like, no, are you serious? It's been made. And I think at that point, it really sunk into me that you can make things that actually like confuse and upset people. And an art style can come across with its own like meaning. You know, this is like kind of a semi-comic booky kind of style. And it can be used as kind of like this like Trojan horse for like subverting ideas and like putting other, like exploring like contrasts and juxtapositions and things like that. So after this, my career started taking off. And I got three main things to thank for that. There used to be a blog in Australia called Australian in Front. It's not around anymore, but like someone from that went to the show, blogged about my work. It got on the internet heaps, which is really great because like they had like a big following and stuff. Secondly, I got into a print magazine called Empty, who also put on like a conference called Semi-Permanent. Now, I was working at that conference that time at a stall outside with the intention to just sneak in because I had no money. And when I got to the conference and I was working, everyone was like, congratulations, congratulations. I'm like, I haven't even snuck in yet. What's all this congratulations about? And they're just like, well, about the cover. And then I saw it, I was like, oh, great. That's really, I was really stoked on it. I thanked the organizers and everything, but you know, I would have just loved like an email or at least like a comp ticket or something like that. But that was good, because like, yeah, like people brought that up a lot. And I just finished art school, so I was like pretty grateful. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So third thing was this guy, Yeezy. Now, back in the day of Macromedia Flash, who remembers Flash? All right. Back in, yeah, it's the dark ages. Yeah, so back in the days of Flash, Kanye West used to have like a design blog. And the thing is, I knew he didn't write it himself because every time he did write something himself, it would be in all caps and misspelt. But every other time, it would just be all like art and design shit. And so he was probably someone just reblogging whatever was cool on the internet and like da-da-da-da-da-da. But then I got into that, and that shot it up like my work out even more. Now, as a result of this, I started getting illustration commissions. And the thing is, like, I didn't actually know what illustration was when I was at art school. Like, when I graduated, the illustration teacher came up to me and he's like, hey, why did you not study illustration or do like an elective or anything in it? Because you're obviously good at it. I'm just like, I didn't even transfer to graphic design when I was supposed to. I didn't even know there was an illustration department. And he's like, yeah. I was like, shit, well, I finished school now. I'm not going to go back. So I kind of just went with it. I had no idea what I was doing. I kind of just followed the money because people just kept emailing me, offering me money to do stuff. And I liked it because I like spending money on hoarding things back in the day. And my experience with working digitally and like screen printing and stuff like that really lended itself to illustration because as I came to discover, there's a lot of changes and a lot of feedback. And so when you show people like different stages, they really like it. Now, I used to think that was pretty cool. Now I kind of hate it. But working as an illustrator was great. You know, it forced me to draw things I wouldn't normally draw, like, I can't even remember now. I don't know, I only draw what I want to draw now. But, and like, it gave me these super tight deadlines. Like, sorry, there's like an alarm going off. So hands up who does stuff super last minute. Like, if you're a student, you do stuff super last minute. Put your hand up. That's not that much. I expected a lot more. But the thing is, I did that too. And the thing is with that is that what you don't realize is it actually gives you really good practice for like reality because you actually get less time than that to do stuff in reality. But you don't get excuses. You don't get to go like, oh, I was sick or you know, my dog died or something. Because it's like clients don't give a crap. So So I learned to like work real fast and find even more shortcuts and like kind of honed my process a bit. And so I'm going to get into that now. I'm going to get into all the techie stuff, my process. Or in other words, two of the most common questions I get on the internet is, what brush do you use, bro? And what program do you use? Oh, shit. That ruined my whole comedic timing. Anyway, I was going to say, will I tell you? And it was going to go to this, okay? You can still clap. Thank you. I messed it up. But of course I will. I use this program, this really weird program called Clip Studio Paint. I'm putting that out there so no one asks me that after this. But that doesn't really tell you much because it doesn't really tell you, like I can tell you that, but you still don't know, like, wouldn't know how to do what I do. And I mean, like, the thing is, and I'll get onto that bit, but it's like, I feel it's like a really good feeling to work when you feel like working, and there's nothing quite like that feeling of like, oh, I want to do something, oh, I got the time to do it. Yes, I'm in the zone, you know? But it doesn't always happen, and we can't always be waiting for like that perfect time to be working, because like if you do, then you're never going to get anything done. You're like, oh, I got my coffee, I got the podcast on, I'm like pretty chill, and it's just like, ah. But now maybe I'll go do something else, and da-da-da-da. It never works out. You kind of just got to get into it. And sometimes you're tired, you're not feeling it, you're fighting with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or something like that. And I found the secret to me was just using this process that was like so automatic that I could work on stuff even when I didn't feel like it, which is, you know, as you can tell, often with me. But even if I wasn't really concentrating, you know, I could just like work, get the work in. If I had new ideas, I can kind of bring that back, leave options open, backtrack on mistakes, keep it all really malleable, okay? So what I mentioned earlier, I work with like a MacBook, Wacom Cintiq, Clip Studio, and Photoshop, all that. And once I have my idea, I kind of start with like a kind of rough photo reference. So let's get it. I'm going to get into explaining how I do it now. And I'm not sure how many of you out there are illustrators and are going to be really stoked for this, and how many of you like don't give a crap, but too bad. Now, a caveat with photo reference is that it's pretty easy to just kind of put it in, get the proportions right, blah, 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 knock it out. But the difference between a photograph and a drawing is that a photograph is inherently real, and you trust that that's a real thing. If you follow the lines on a photograph too closely, and you take the photograph away and it's a drawing, sometimes it looks pretty shit. So you still need to know the not really the fundamentals, but like know why this is here or that makes sense, or like convey the volume and things like that. So I do two passes. I do a blue layer, which is pretty loose. And I always like to keep it really loose because I always find that once you have the idea, it's really important to just like get to about 70% into it as soon as possible. You got to like ride that momentum. And mind you don't actually have to do it in those colors. I just do them because it helps me see stuff better. And then I move on to the fine line work bit, okay, where things get more refined. I'm not too fussy with this because the undo tool is fantastic. So the first line you put down doesn't always end up being in the final thing, so you just start going. And then I put in the colors. Oh, yeah. Now the thing is, I don't know what colors I'm putting in. Again, the theme of my talk is I have no idea what's going on. So I put in the layers, and I put in like all the information. So they'll put in the flats there, start adding the dark, start adding the light, da-da-da-da-da. And then usually like I'll do that in all separate colors, and then right at the end I'll mess around with like what color scheme it should be. And usually whenever I make something, there's about 3 color schemes I have to kind of pick from that work. But I don't want to do that in the middle of something because I don't want it to be like stalling the momentum, which again, that's like super, super important for me to kind of just like be able to have the idea and just get straight into it. And every now and then I animate it. Let's get it. How do I? Oh. There we go. And that's in the same program too, Clip Studio Paint, so don't ask me. Here is a time lapse of how I kind of build it up. And here is, this is me, this is me how I actually draw. That's obviously sped up. I shouldn't have said that. But if if clients see this and then it's like, oh, he's actually really fast, and they expect it really fast. Never let them know how fast you can actually work, mind you. Because it can take you 2 hours, but tell them it's like, oh, this is going to at least be 2 weeks. Now, I'll show you, okay, this is how it actually looks. This is like the reality of it. As you can see, kind of boring. And once the digital stuff's done and the information exists, sometimes I like experimenting with putting it in different formats. Like lately I've been doing like augmented reality stuff using this program called iJack that my friends in my old studio made. I've got a bunch of these stickers as well. If you want one, just come harass me for it after this. And so this is just a plug for my friends. If you want to play around with that, they have a pretty easy program to do that stuff. And sometimes, like a projection map it. This was in Miami. I was obviously started partying too soon and didn't get any like good footage. But yeah. So sometimes it's a mural. When I do a mural, this is kind of the stuff I use. I like project. And I project the lines in, and I pretty much go in and color by numbers, basically. And the projection part is quite time sensitive because, someone can always knock it over, or there's always something bizarre always happens when you're projecting. So that's like always like the crazy bit. I do that, and then the rest of it, I can just take my time and just start filling in the colors, And if it needs to be in color, then, I do it in layers and build it up that way. And, you can kind of just do it hungover. You don't really have to think about it, so that's why I like it. This is a wall I did over in Miami. I nearly fell off that one too. Thing is, like, I love doing murals, but I always keep nearly falling off the scissor lifts and just thinking, like, is this really how I want to go, And it isn't. I don't want to go that way. And I'm going to give you a disclaimer. Like, this is like, I'm not saying this is the best method for me, but if you're like one of those people that can actually like walk up to a thing and be able to draw it and do that, by all means do that. But the reason I do this is, like I said before, I'm lazy, I have really short attention span, and I can't really draw. So I found a way to just cheat it. And everyone thinks I'm good at drawing, and now I'm here talking to you. So in terms of what I'm inspired by when I approach my work, I think about things in reverse. A lot of the fun for me is kind of like coming up with the idea and knowing what I want and then working backwards. Like, I don't really have a sketchbook. I have like a list of ideas. And it's like when you try to like remember a dream. You guys keep like a great dream journal? It's just me, weirdo on stage. Okay, so it's kind of like this. So this is what my sketchbook is kind of. So it's like electric geisha club door. All right. Leopard on motorcycle mountain. Helicopter woman railgun trench coat. I know you guys can read, but I don't know if you can read my writing, which is why I'm reading this out. Okay. Reaper woman face mask. I can't wait to draw that one, actually. And sometimes it's actually really simple. Sometimes it's like a fucking robot centaur, man. Now, when I mentioned earlier that I've managed to make conceiving ideas like digital as well, now I don't hoard things physically anymore, but I do hoard things digitally in the form of like aggregating images. So I do this pretty much every single day, all the time. It's probably the one most consistent thing that I keep doing. Just being on my Tumblr, like working on my Tumblr, which is that one. So the images I like on Instagram basically get reblogged to my Tumblr. And, well, as you can probably guess, it's going to be not safe for work. So if you're really young, avert your eyes. But I'm just going to show you what my Tumblr looks like. And what I love about this process is that I'm able to see like repeated motifs, see what I'm kind of drawn to, if things repeat themselves, like poses, colors, things like that. It's like playing a game of memory, you know that game Memory where you like lift the cards up and look at it like that? But I'm also able to form like connections between disparate things. So I feel like I'm kind of just like remixing different images together and like sampling them. So here's an example. Here's 3 images that I like. And I thought, okay, I see a connection between these. And so from that, I went and made that, which is a sad demon against a rock in the shape of a woman. I know you can see that. Here's another one. 4 images, seemingly strangers, and let's make them friends. So I turned it into that. And these are all actually part of an exhibition I did, God, I actually can't remember when. It was recent. It was like a ballpoint version. I started doing ballpoints because I wanted to introduce like physicality back into my work, and because I started feeling like it needed like a bit of an aura. And around this time, I had the opportunity to work for Queens of the Stone Age, and they kind of let me do whatever I want, which is really great, because usually when people tell you you can do whatever you want, you go off, you do a whole bunch of stuff, drafts, and you come back, and they go, okay, we really like this, all these 20 things you've done. We should have actually just told you in the beginning, could you just draw us a dog or a skull or something? You know, and kind of like, can you, oh, God. So at the time, I was obsessed with like Chinese medicine packet design. I had no idea what these things are. I see them all the time. I don't buy them because I don't know if it's like, I'll get a weird look, depending on what they do. But I combined that with that previous image to form this poster for them. All right? And thank you, thank you. I like it too. I think it's pretty good. And which is really great, because I got to meet them, and they were just like, yeah, you know when we told you you could do whatever you wanted? I'm like, yeah. They're just like, we were not expecting this. Because it wasn't like on Chinese New Year, or it had nothing to do with anything. They were playing a show in like Tasmania. And I was just like, yeah, just make it all Chinese and shit, you know? Which I'm allowed to, I guess, because I'm half Chinese, but I don't speak it. But, so illustration was going pretty well for me, especially with jobs like this. But it was pretty rare to kind of get jobs like this. So more often than not, kind of the weirder my work got, the kind of less work I would get. And the kind of work I was getting was kind of work, like kind of scraps that I just had to get to survive, and they'd be really, really, really irritating to do. And I just really didn't like it. And what was happening is like I kept getting more and more ideas for personal work because I kind of had automated it with my whole Tumblr thing. And so I kept just having all these ideas, and I had this like wait list of things that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I started to like resent the work that I was doing because it was distracting me from like this. So I was like, I was doing these jobs that I didn't like all the time when I should have just been doing this personal work, but I had to do these jobs because I just, you know, I needed money. And that resentment is kind of weird to build up because like you enter a creative career because you kind of like it and you love it. But I found over time I was kind of falling out of love with it. Oh, how sad. And when I started doing art and illustration, like I was really lucky in the sense that like I got to do like a lot of my personal stuff and a lot of my commercial stuff was like pretty tied together. And I realize now that I was really lucky. But the thing is like, the more I did my personal work, the happier I was, and the closer it got to me feeling like this is actually more what I'm supposed to be doing. And it felt like everything was like kind of coming into focus, and I just wanted to make more. And I feel like I just really needed to like figure myself out, you know? I just, like, just take a good look at my life. And a huge lesson I learned from honors as well is that the only way to understand yourself as an artist is you just need to keep making more work. You can't just be thinking about it all the time. You actually have to physically just go do it. It has to be in the world. And I felt like that's what I needed to do. So I was, you know, like I said, I was spending all my time working. I was living in one of the most expensive cities in the world, Sydney, which I do love it. But I was feeling like, what's the point? Like I don't get to do all this art stuff. I'm going to fall off a scissor lift at one point, not have done all this stuff, and everyone's going to be like, yeah, that last mural he did, not that good, you know? So I just needed to work less. I needed more time for personal work, so I moved to a cheaper city. I left my studio, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to Bangkok. And I hadn't been there in like 15 years. Now, my plan initially going to Bangkok was to kind of isolate myself, you know, like live outside the city, have this really like zen, hey! Woo! Are you guys cheering for Bangkok or Dragon Ball Z? Dragon Ball Z! Should have just said Bangkok. You know, I'm standing right here. But okay, now I wanted to like live outside the city, you know, like meditate, work on this like wait list and all that stuff. But I don't know if you know anything about Bangkok, but that didn't happen. Bangkok's not a quiet city. It's insane. It's actually incredible. And that's me in the white, getting my ass kicked. The second one, not the third one. Sorry, I'm trying to skip it. Yeah, there we go. This is me enjoying myself immensely. So mind you, I was still getting work done in between all this, but ooh, shit, what was that? Okay. But I felt like it was too open-ended and I could easily get lost if I didn't have some kind of deadline to work towards. So I figured it was a good idea to have an exhibition. I definitely wanted to do it somewhere I hadn't before, so I just kind of picked LA. I pitched an exhibition to a gallery called Super Chief in LA, and a proposal got approved. And I've been working on that pretty much ever since, this whole year. So that gave me a lot of structure in between, this stuff. And so I worked in reverse. I knew that the gallery was like really, really big. I knew it had to be like paintings, otherwise, because they would have just, well, it kind of just had to be. And I didn't think it's like, I had never painted on like a canvas like that before. And you had to be something different. And so I was working through this wait list. So this is, oh shit, again. Just forget, okay, so I was drawing all this stuff. And I was very conscious of like kind of going like, okay, well, how am I going to actually make all this stuff like an exhibition? And I had to kind of be like, you need to wrap this up. You need to go like, it's the one thing to work through this wait list, but I don't know what the actual exhibition in the end was going to look like. So I kind of had to cap it off. And what I decided to do is I decided to take what I had already been drawing and kind of layer them all over each other and like make these like super maximalist things that were really like different from the previous show I did, which is like a lot more like black and white and like quiet kind of stuff. And I was painting them in this tiny apartment too. So I went from having like a big studio where it would have been nice to have done all this, and now I just like work out of like the tiniest condo ever. So this is what I've been working on. Ta-da. So you can't really see it because I've cropped it because there's just coffee mugs and my pajamas and stuff around it. But these are huge. They're like probably about like that big, which is like, I don't know, I'm impressed by it. And because you guys have been so nice and laughing at my jokes, I'm going to show you, I'm going to end with the final view of the whole set. Now, no one's seen this, so you guys are going to be the first to see all this. So, yeah. Ooh. This is them. So this is what I've been doing all year. So thank you very much.